presence of your fear. Because the only reason that we don't believe in things is because we are afraid of what may happen if we do. If I step out on faith and I purchase this car, if I step out on faith and I go back to school, even though I work full time and I have a family, then we fear the consequences. But God says when you respond to the power that I've given to you, I respond with my power in your situation.
Wow.
So your faith is born in the presence of your fear. In verse 26, when God calls you to a thing, and we got to understand this. In verse 26, this is what he's asking Gideon to do. Build an altar to the Lord, to the top of the rock, and he wants him to tear down the altar of Baal and the image that was beside it. When God calls you, the first thing you have to do is to destroy those false idols that are in your life. When he calls you, the first thing you have to do is destroy those false idols that are in your life. Those things that we love to do that have no godly representation whatsoever. Those people that we love to be around that have no godly representation whatsoever. Those things that we like to participate in that have no godly representation whatsoever. It has to come down. Because the reason why God is calling you is not for your purpose. It's not calling for the things that you want to do. He's calling you for his purpose. And he has to be seen in everything that we do. And so when you're called, all the false idols have got to go down. And he is commanded to destroy the altar of Baal that was built by his father. And the wood of the altar. Can I suggest this? Everything that your father or mother has built is not necessarily good.
Amen. Amen.
Personal testimony. My father built a reputation of womanizing, pimping, drug selling, drug abuse. If I didn't destroy that altar that my father built, I would be the same thing. Everything that your parents have done, or those who raised you, or those who were around you, that built was not good. And so he told Gideon, not only do I want you to build the altar, but I want the fire to be burned with the wood of the last altar. There are some things that are generational curses that we need to put on the altar so it can be consumed by the fire of God, so that we can live to his presence. But a lot of people want to hold on to the past things, and the reason why the residue is still there in your life is because you didn't put all the wood on the altar. The reason why you are still suffering that thing is because you didn't put the graven image on the altar. You're still trying to hold on to things that God said, I need you to let go, and there's a reason why. So if you're still suffering, it's not because God didn't do what he was supposed to do. It's because you didn't do what you were supposed to do. And Gideon's fear shows up in verse 27. So he said, I'll do what you asked me to do, God, but I'm going to wait till it's nighttime. How many of us have ever been in that position where we want to please God, but we don't want to do it in front of other people? We don't want to see us reading our Bibles. We don't want them to see us wearing, our By the Grace Ministry shirt. We don't want them to see us singing songs, walking through the neighborhood and praising God. We don't want them to look at us like we're crazy. So we have a fear. But our faith is what should move us to God. Because at the end of the day, those people that we're afraid of looking at us like us crazy ain't the one who sent their son to die for us. The ones that we're afraid of talking about us behind their back are not the one that heals us when our body gets sick. The ones that we're afraid to seeing us look crazy are not going to be the ones that come into the room when you've experienced death and comfort you. They're not going to wrap their arms around you. They're not going to send you their peace. Those people have no dealings whatsoever. But the God I serve, I respond to that faith that He's given to me. So if I have to look crazy for God, I'll much rather look crazy for God than these crazy people on the street. So I will lift up your name, God, and I won't be afraid to do it in the day or the night, because it does not matter. If God told you to do it, you got to execute it, and He's going to make sure that it's going to be done right.
Yes.
And I hope you got your popcorn ready.
Come on now.
Let's watch scripture. Let's look at verse 30. It says, "Then the men of the city said to Joash, bring out your son that he may die, because he has torn down the altar of Baal, and because he has cut down the wooden image that was beside it." If you don't get anything else, get this. People will always want to kill you when your truth destroys their life. They're going to want to destroy you when your truth destroys their life. Because a lot of people want to function in a place where they feel comfortable. But the moment that you bring light to their darkness, you immediately become a threat to them. See, as long as we're drinking and partying together, we're good. But the moment you get God, oh, you got to be destroyed. I'm going to tear down your reputation. I'm going to start talking about you. I'm going to make people think that the God that is in you does not exist. So people will try to do it because they want to continue to live a lie. But because you have truth, you are a threat to that lie, and it's exposure. People don't like that. That's just like what Pastor Jay was talking about last week with Joseph. They didn't care anything about Joseph's faith until he started wearing it. And so at that point, they said, he's got to die. So they figured, let me get rid of the coat, we'll get rid of the favor. But that's not how God works.
Amen.
And so when the favor of God is on you and people can't get to you, they want to kill you. And these were his brothers trying to kill him because the favor of God was on him. Don't let people allow you to put yourself down just so they feel comfortable in your presence. If God is in you, they're not supposed to feel comfortable in your presence unless they have the same spirit inside of them. The third thing is, faith requires losing people. I know that's hard for us. I know that's hard for us, but I hope you still got your popcorn. Good, because let's watch scripture. In chapter 7, verse 2, it says, "And the Lord said to Gideon, the people who are with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel claim glory for itself against me, saying, my own hands has saved me." Now watch what God does. Verse 3. "Now therefore proclaim in the hearing of the people, saying, whoever is fearful and afraid, let him turn and depart once from the Mount Gilead." And 22,000 of the people turned, and 10,000 remained. 22,000 men left because they were afraid. You are going to lose people in your life because their faith can't travel to where God is going to take them.
Jesus.
We have a lot of times we have people we've been close to for a long time. We have people in our lives that we've known all our lives. But when God is doing a work in you, they may not be allowed to go. And I know I've said it before, but that's what David was talking about in Psalm 23. He says, "For God prepares a table before me in the presence of mine enemies." And what they're saying is that God is preparing the table. Because if we prepare the table, we have 22 place settings. And God says there only needs to be 6. But we want everybody to be invited to the party, and God says they don't deserve to be here. 22,000 people were too afraid to fight for the thing that they said they believed in. How many of that is us? How many of us have been too afraid to fight for what we believe in? Then my question is, then did we believe Or do we have faith? Because with our faith, it requires us to follow through. And so we had 22 believers, 22,000 believers that walked away. Fear sets in, and they are gone. Because they are not allowed to go where God is taking you because their faith is not on the level. So they're, what do you mean you're starting a business? They're afraid to do so. What do you mean you're going back to school? What do you mean you're buying a house? What do you mean you're moving out of the hood? What do you mean you're not drinking anymore? What do you mean you're not smoking anymore? What do you mean this is the last time? They are too afraid to take that leap. But God is taking us somewhere else, and we have got to continue to follow God. Let's keep watching. In verse 4 and verse 5, it says, "But the Lord said to Gideon, the people who are still too many, bring them down to the water, and I will test them for you there. Then it will be that of whom I say to you, this one shall go with you, the same shall go with you. And whoever I say this one shall not go with you, shall not go with you." In verse 5, "So he brought the people down to the water, and the Lord said to Gideon, everyone who laps from the water with his tongue as a dog laps, you shall set apart by himself. Likewise, everyone who gets down on his knees to drink." Now watch what God does in verse 6. Keep watching. "And the number of those who lapped, putting their hand to their mouths, was 300 men. But all of the rest of the people got down on their knees to drink water." So another 9,700 people gone. Because they had the wrong position. Now, understand this. Water represents the Spirit of God. And so what God told Gideon was, if they get down on their hands and knees and lap the water with their mouths, they're not to go. So if water represents the Spirit of God, that means these people were getting on their hands and knees and getting the water with their mouth. Some people's posture has the same way with the Spirit. They will talk or use their mouths to convey the Spirit. But their hands don't possess it. Let me say it like this. A lot of people want you to think they're spiritual because of what they do with their mouth. But that is the wrong posture to have when you're trying to convey Spirit.
Come on now. Come on.
300 men said that they put their hands in it and brought it to their mouth, which means they possessed it first. A lot of people want you to think that they possess the Spirit, but they don't possess the Spirit. It's just something that they're doing with their mouths. But we have to make sure that we possess the Spirit because God is trying to do something in us. If we don't possess the Spirit, the thing that he wants us to do will not be able to be done. So they started out with 32,000 people. And now it is, Gideon has 300. 300 people going into battle. Your faith is born in the presence of your fear. Now, can you imagine all of the Bloods and all of the Crips coming against us that is in this upstate area, and we're going to fight with what's in this room? How many would be afraid? Y'all lying.
Hey.
Be scared just like I would. And so is Gideon. 300 people to fight all of these people, because it wasn't just the Midianites, it was the Amalekites as well. And they were all in the valley. They were all in Gilead. And God told him, you got 300 people to fight this battle with. And so it is amazing how God can do certain things with a little bit. And see, what he didn't understand is that God was working on something. And if you go back to the verse, he said, I don't want you to have a whole bunch of people. Why? Because then you'll think that you're not.